Hi, Jewish Mom. So I've been talking a lot on the blog about this conference that I went to called the Binyan Shalom Conference. It's an annual conference, mostly for almost all the people there are Jewish mothers. This year it attracted almost 10,000 participants. And every year it's really like a real pick-me-up for me, a very inspirational experience. This year it was 3 days long. Used to be 2 days. So I just want to share like a few more stories that have been kind of going around my head since I attended. So the first story I want to tell you is about a woman named Tamar Nizri. Tamar Nizri is a mother, probably maybe around 40, a mother of 8 children, who lived until recently in a yishuv, in an outpost called Amona. And those of you who live in Israel, I'm sure, are familiar with the story of Amona. I'm going to explain for the people who don't live here or didn't hear the news about it. So Amona was the largest outpost in Judea and Samaria, and there were 42 families living there until this past February 1st, when I think the army came in to basically to destroy the outpost and to take the families out of Amona. So basically, Amona was destroyed, the homes were destroyed, and the families were brought. The families still, like it's been maybe 6 months, the families still are living in the dormitories in Ofra, in like kind of a school, in the dormitories of Midrashat Ofra, which is a kilometer away. So one of the most, so actually, I actually heard this talk from Tamar Nisri about something else. She's like a life coach, and she was giving kind of life coaching pointers to mothers. But as an aside, like she said, she mentioned her experience of the evacuation from Amona, and she had been one of the most outspoken people in Amona. She was kind of, I think, kind of the informal spokesperson of Amona. And my daughter was actually there at her house because Tamar Nizri's daughter is a classmate of my daughter. So my daughter Halal had actually been in her house, and she said before the evacuation, then there were hundreds of people in the Nizri home being hosted by them, and and she had given many, many, many interviews to all sorts of media outlets, and she just kind of been full-time Amona. So you can imagine, and Halal told me that, that she had a beautiful home. So you can imagine what a devastating experience it was for Tamar Nizri to have her community, her home of 20 years destroyed, and to lose her home. Her home was taken apart, and to now be living with her children, her husband and her children, in a dormitory. You can imagine, no matter what your political views of what happened in Nimona, you can imagine that it was a very, very challenging experience for her. So I was quite surprised when Tamar Nizri she said, I want to tell you that when I look back on the last few months, you would think, my home was destroyed, my community was destroyed, you'd think, it would be very difficult. She said, but when I think about it, I feel great, great, great simcha. I feel great joy when I look back on the last few months. She said, why? She said, because there are she says that there's two different kinds of things we can worry about in life. There's what you call the ma'agal hada'aga, the circle of things we can worry about. For example, North Korea is within the circle of things that we can worry about. The climate change, global warming, the situation in the Middle East, all these things that we can worry about, Iran's nuclear program, all these things that we can worry about, but really we can't do much about them. They're in the circle of worry. But then she said, but there's something called Ma'agal Hashpa'ah, the circle of influence, things we can actually do something about, things in our neighborhood, things with our children, things in our family, things that are happening right next to us, so we can actually have an impact on the world. And she said, within my circle of influence, I was 100%. So when I look back, on the last few months, it's true. My community was destroyed. My beautiful home was destroyed. She said, but I feel great joy because I knew I did everything I could have done. I thought that was an incredible story. It reminded me of the story that I told several weeks ago about the Rebbetzin, with the children in Europe who she wasn't able to who were living with a non-Jewish family, and she wasn't able to get them. If you remember the story, whatever you remember it, but just like I felt like this was just an incredible lesson for us. About in everything that we do, like how it's so easy to judge success and satisfaction and happiness by actual tangible success, that we actually succeeded at what we want to do. And here's Tamar Nizri. She didn't succeed, but yet she feels great joy because she did everything in terms of what she could do. She did everything she really could have done. Really, I think an important lesson for all of us. Okay, there's another story I want to share with you. A story, they had an interesting class at Binyan Shalem, with a featuring a rabbi and his wife, and they kind of talked about stories from their lives as parents, and it was really it was very entertaining and very powerful also, so I'm not going to say the rabbi's name. I think that he's somebody extremely well known in Israel, and I got the sense that he didn't want these stories told with his name outside of the class. So his wife explained, the rabbinite explained, that they have a son whose hairstyle has gone through several gilgulim, through several incarnations. So basically, so one time this teenage son came home, and his hair was very spiky, very gelled up and spiky. Okay. And so this rabbi, in addition to being like a very, he's kind of a famous speaker and lecturer around Israel, he has a shul. And he said to his son, he said, today you are coming with me to shul and you are sitting next to me. And it sounds like his son usually goes to like the minyan of the youth group where they don't actually do very much davening in that specific place where he lives. But he said, tonight you're coming with me. He said, because I do not for even 1 second to be embarrassed of my son. He said, so you are going to come and so basically, he's the rabbi. He's to sit like in the front row. He's sitting in the front row with the rabbi next to his son with the spiky hair. I thought that was a beautiful story, that he's, just sitting next to the spiky hair son. People will think what they think, and this is his son, and he loves him. And okay. So the last thing I want to tell you about is something I heard from Dana Slay, who is I'm not sure what you call it. She's like the director of Midrashet Harova in the Old City. She gave a really nice talk. She's actually also my next door neighbor, very nice person. And she talked about, she was talking about the importance of doing new things. So she brought a quote from the Kedushat Levi, on the pasuk of the Kaveh Hashem yechlifu koach. And those who hope to Hashem, they will get new koach, right? New energy. So I'm just gonna. So then he writes, Hainu shemitchalfim tamid, sheinam omdim b'bchina echad. In other words, the people who get energy are the ones who do not stand b'bchina echad. They don't stand in one place. Ki b'kol yom avodatam chadasha. Every day their avoda, every day their spiritual service is new. So Dana Slay, she mentioned this in the context of she's a very busy person, and she has a very large family. I'm not sure exactly how many. She has over 10 children, and she runs Midrashet Harova, so a very busy person. And she said that she made the time to go back for a something kind of an advanced education, to get like a more advanced it was an advanced course in education. And it was like, I think, a year-long course, and it was very hard. It was like this time that she needed. It was this time that she could have used as, you know, time for whatever, for like for the home or for herself, whatever. But she just felt the need. She said how much koach, how much energy she got from doing this course, and from making the extra time to learn something new. And I've just been thinking about that. I've been thinking about that for me, of like how much energy and joy it gives me to learn new things. I knew I have a friend. She's an elderly Holocaust survivor. She's in her early 80s. Maybe she might be 80 actually. And she told me that like the last time she saw her parents was, I think, when she was maybe 4. But something that she learned from her parents. She said her mother always said, learn something new every day. Every day, learn something new. And I think, you know, most of us don't really have the time, I think, to be doing, probably most of us aren't so interested in going on taking an academic course to, I mean, not that I have anything against that, but I think that all of us can always be learning something new. And I think that's a beautiful idea, to learn something new every day, you know, to read a new article, to learn a new concept, to learn a new skill, to even like read a new entry in Wikipedia. Um, to learn something new every day. And I thought that's a beautiful idea. I thought maybe I'd take that on for myself for next year. Every year in Elul with Rabbi Niven, then we have an Elul plan that we make our goals for next year. And I'm considering maybe putting that on for next year, learning something new every day, even something very, very small. So in conclusion, Jewish moms, I talked about Tamar Nizri, who even though her home was destroyed, her community was destroyed, she, looking back, she feels like within her sphere of influence. I'm sorry, that's the word, sphere, not circle. Within her sphere of influence, then she did everything that she could do, and that because of that, she feels great joy. And even though the outcome definitely wasn't what she wanted, she feels great joy looking back on. Uh, and how and that she was 100% in terms of her sphere of influence. The second thing, the spiky hair, and how the rabbi decided he was going to sit next to his son with a spiky hair, was not going to be embarrassed for one moment of his son. Um, and that his number one priority was connection with his son, and not what everyone thinks. Someone else at the conference mentioned the word lachutz, stressed, is from the word chutz. It's from external. That when we get worried about external appearances and what people are thinking about us, this can be a great source of lachutz, a great source of lachatz, of stress. Okay. And Dana Slade, who quoted the Kedushat Levi, the importance of learning new things. So on that note, I want to bless all of you Jewish moms with an amazing week.